Lifeability family. Today we have the amazing Dr. Kelli Ritter on the Lifeability podcast. Dr. Kelli specializes in natural stress and anxiety recovery. She utilizes quantum health strategies, gut healing, nutritional therapy, and empowering techniques for improved mood, better sleep, and increased energy. She's redefining mental health while helping us all realize a deeper experience of inner peace and restored vitality. Dr. Kelli provides a fresh perspective on health and healing through global education, virtual consultation, and practitioner membership. Dr. Kelli's personal experience with her father's cancer diagnosis and navigating her son's chronic health problems, including anxiety and panic attacks, has brought true insight into how to fully recover from various chronic health issues, particularly chronic anxiety. She enjoys nothing more than helping others recharge, recover, and revitalize their lives. Trauma competent and trained in functional nutritional therapy, havening technique, EMDR, Psych K, addiction and mental health nutrition, ketogenic diets for mental health, quantum biology, and mindful-based stress reduction. Dr. Kelli is able to combine a variety of highly effective approaches in her work. This podcast, we discuss quantum biology and the impact of light environments. However, also reinforcing the impact of the body in its physical and emotional form and its interaction with our perception. I hope you enjoy today's session. Welcome, Dr. Kelli Ritter, to the Lifeability podcast. I'm so excited to have you on, and I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. So I want us to dive straight into your perspective of quantum and how that relates to anxiety.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And yeah, so the way that I was trained was kind of classical, traditional mental health, clinical. And the way that I always looked at anxiety was more from a behavioral, cognitive, change the way you think, change the way you behave, and it'll help with how your mood or anxiety, depression, those kinds of things. And it never really fully helped my own anxiety. To be honest, I thought that I just had an anxious disposition and that was the way I was wired. And there's really not a whole lot you could do about it. I did a lot of yoga, meditation, a lot with diet and nutrition, and really was never that interested in working in stress and anxiety as my area of expertise. Like that just really wasn't. I did a lot more with like parenting and child and family work, but then always pursuing my own healing led me on this path. And it was actually my son getting really sick and having extreme chronic anxiety, panic attacks, and not being able to help him. We tried just about everything. And of course, I was doing all the nutritional stuff. And that's when I found applied quantum biology and the quantum health strategies. And it changed my life. So not only did my own anxiety really improve, not just improve, because I was used to having improvement. And a lot of the clients that would come to me, particularly for nutritional therapy, when you have gut health issues like IBS, Crohn's, colitis, any kind of mostly IBS is who would come to me. When you have digestive issues, it's pretty common to also have mental health concerns. Some people are aware of that connection and some people aren't when they come. They just want to help, work on their gut. So I'd had people come with some improvement with the skills that I had and some trauma counseling skills, but not this kind of improvement. not where it was like literally night and day change in myself. And so I finally sort of, I don't know if I was just resisting working in the field of stress and anxiety and having this become my specialty because I hadn't resolved my own completely. You sort of feel like a fraud. It's like, well, how can I help other people? Even though I was helping people with anxiety, I I sort of resisted that until I found the quantum health strategies and really started to go, okay, we can actually really change this. We can, I would dare say, cure it.
Mhm. And so when you say quantum health, because quantum physics has probably been a term that's been thrown around for a while. Now we've got quantum biology, we've got quantum technology. So if we're looking at health and you mentioned quantum biology, what exactly is that?
Yeah, and for me, I'm not a quantum physicist, so I know quantum physicists sometimes get upset the way that we talk about this, but for me, what I'm talking about is the smallest of things and the smallest changes that we can make to have the biggest impact, in this case, on our mental health, but health in general. And then also some of the smallest, the tiniest subatomic particles and waves inside of what's happening inside the body. So I'm really interested in mitochondrial health, circadian rhythms, and what's going on the tiniest level that is driving some of the bigger picture, some of the things that we just couldn't really explain and we couldn't help people completely when in mental health, particularly in clinical mental health. It's now these, we can answer a lot of questions with applied quantum biology that we just couldn't answer with looking at things from more of a biochemical perspective or mechanical, chemical. So really it's this cutting edge, or I like to say leading edge, but like a cutting edge science, and we're still learning a lot about it. But I'm real interested in the practical piece, right? So I like the research. I think that's interesting, but I'm really interested in how does this impact people's lives? How do we make a difference in your everyday life so that you are not plagued by chronic anxiety, panic attacks, mood swings, and just really generally feeling not just less than optimal, but like really feeling shitty a lot of the time. We do not have to feel like that. We do not have to feel drained and anxious. That's not, people will say to me, well, it's my genetics. That is not how we're wired. So, yeah, so I'm really interested in the practical piece of that. But that's what I mean by it, if that
Mm.
made sense.
And so, if a client walks in through your door, and you mentioned previously or having trained in more of the behavioral work or the
Mhm.
cognitive work, what is your process of going through the assessment stage using quantum biology?
Yeah. Well, I created a little assessment for people. It's as far as I know, there's nothing out there on quantum health. So I just created a little questionnaire so that I can get a sense of kind of where people are. And what I'm wanting to know is some of their habits. Like, how often are they outside? Do they ever see sunrise? Are they really attached to their sunglasses? How late are they staying up? Are they on devices at night? Basically, I want to know about their blue light exposure after sunset. So it's a lot of lifestyle kinds of things. It's a pretty simple questionnaire. It sounds like it's long, but it really isn't long. And so what I generally do, and for a while, I would only see people who have taken my courses. So they already have an idea, they're already working on some things, and then they're coming to me for consultation because it's hard to make some of these changes. They're simple, but to get yourself to do it, to be motivated to do it. And so I can use a lot of other tools, some of my older training, some of my former training, or and also use some of the nutritional therapy because sometimes people just need a little bit of tweaking in terms of their nutrition. But that's generally my process, is to talk with people about their habits, their lifestyles, and where they feel like they're stuck. And one of the things that we end up usually doing when people are doing a lot of the quantum health strategies already, they've already implemented a lot of the lifestyle changes. They're outside more, they're not wearing their sunglasses as much, they're really aware of their light environment. They might be also doing things like an earthing practice or actually putting their skin on Earth's surface. So they're doing a lot of that, but they're not really feeling like it's improving whatever it is they're trying to improve. For me, they usually come because they're anxious, right? And then we really have to look at the emotional. That's when we like dig into the emotional, stuck emotions, toxic stress, unprocessed traumas. That's where we do that work, because they go hand in hand. So a lot of the clients that come to me, or a lot of the students that will come to my courses, they've tried everything. They've already done a lot of the work psychologically. They've had therapy. They've even done some trauma work, but they're missing the quantum health piece. And then sometimes people come and they haven't done that part. So they're done all the quantum health part, and now they need help with processing like where those stuck emotions are and using some of the tools. Energy tools are probably my favorite, I guess, the most, I guess they work the best, the quickest, in my opinion, but there are lots of different tools that people can use.
And that's amazing how you mentioned that they kind of go hand in hand, because a lot of times people think they've got to change their environment, and their environment not only just being light, but whether it's their diet or whether, getting some more movement. But if they're not processing any of those emotions, then we're just going to keep coming back and not really understanding what's holding them back, really, right? So I really do like that you reinforcing that it's just one area of our life that we need to change, because they all kind of interconnect and work together.
Right. Yeah. And if
And
people are in toxic stress environments, I think most people will think of that as like relationships or job, or they don't necessarily think about their light environment being so stressful and toxic. So wherever you enter, it's all connected. You're right. And wherever it's sort of speaking to you at the moment to enter. But I find that most people they're missing some piece of the puzzle when they reach me.
And so I want to tap into anxiety itself. And,
Yeah.
because I guess in this fast paced modern world that we live in, a lot of us probably live in anxiety not knowing, right? We're constantly just doing and being productive and having to go and hustle, and until we kind of hit rock bottom, and then we're like, oh, what was going on, and we start to explore. But what are some of the things that you can, I guess, recommend for us to look out for, so that we don't get to rock bottom, and so we can start potentially getting help sooner, rather than really waiting for that crash period?
That's a great question. And I think sometimes people have to hit rock bottom, honestly, until they'll allow themselves to heal, or allow. I think it's more about a surrendering than anything. So, what I typically will say to people, so anxiety is a natural response that we have. It's an important sensation. Usually, what people are talking about when they say anxious, they are feeling, it can actually manifest in the body, but you're feeling nervous, irritable, mood swings, a lot of chronic overthinking, chronic worry. and just feeling like something is just holding you back from being fully yourself. Sometimes that's socially and social anxiety situations. Sometimes that's really specific fears like phobias. And sometimes it's that generalized, the generalized anxiety. It's more, a lot of people don't even recognize that they're in it. And so, do you need to recognize that you're in it in order to heal it? I don't actually think so. I think it's helpful to have some awareness and to actually go, oh my gosh, I need to be working on my lifestyle and my environment so that I'm not feeling like this. But a lot of people that come to me don't even realize how anxious they are. So you could start by really paying attention to your light environment and harmonizing with your natural environment, the nature outside, getting outside more, doing some of these things, and then start to realize that your nervous system was actually sort of frozen or stuck often in fight or flight, or fight, flight, freeze. So sometimes that's a response to a toxic stress in your life, the type of go, 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 what you're talking about, the hustle, or stress at work, or those kinds of, it can be unprocessed trauma. So people are kind of stuck in that fight, flight, freeze. And that to me is all about danger signaling. And the way out of that is more safety signaling. And so, on a cellular level, our bodies were designed, nature in and of itself is a safety signal. But then also, your circadian rhythm. So, supporting your circadian rhythms, that gives you more safety signaling. Getting your light environment right, you're getting more safety signaling, you're reducing the danger signaling. And so you're going to have less danger signaling on a cellular level, and less of a fear frequency running through your body, which is creating chaos and making you feel anxious, because that's really, anxiety is a fear frequency. And not necessarily is calm the opposite. So sometimes people are like, oh, I'd rather be calm or peaceful. I actually think calm is a piece of the puzzle, but I think of anxiety, the opposite of anxiety is really more about trust. So trusting in yourself, trusting in the world around you, and trusting in something higher than yourself, whatever that might look like. And so the more stressors we have in our lives, especially the unprocessed traumas, unprocessed stress, it piles up on us, and it just creates less and less trust. We don't necessarily trust our own instincts. We don't trust that the world has got our, like that, whatever her name is, Gabby Bernstein or whatever, is like, the universe has your back. And it's like, not, if you're anxious all the time and you're feeling chronically anxious, you do not feel like the universe has your back, because you've got this kind of constantly running danger signaling and fear cycling. And it's not like you're constantly in fear and can't function at all. Some people get that way, but most of us function, but not well. And we don't even realize like how bad it is until it starts getting better. And then you go, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that this is how bad it was. So for me, it's about all the safety signaling and increasing that safety signaling, and just being aware that we need the fear signaling. I mean, we need to know when there's some dangerous thing that's happening. We need to experience that so that we freeze, run, fight, survive the situation. But most of us are running through that cycling constantly. And one of the biggest stressors in our lives is incorrect circadian timing. So if your circadian rhythms are off because the light, all of our timing is off. So light is one of the biggest inputs, but also like when we eat, when we socialize, all these other circadian signaling, when all of that is off, then almost every function in the body is going to be off. When you make your hormones, when you release those hormones, when to make which neurotransmitters, when to release those neurotransmitters, all of that is going to be off, which is going to create a feeling of a fear frequency, cellular danger signaling, which often feels like anxiety in the body.
And when we're constantly running anxious, then we're producing cortisol, which
Yes.
is then going to, cause a lot of these inflammatory diseases or a lot of the digestive problems you were talking about initially anyway. And it's
Correct.
amazing when people see that link and start changing some of their habits, like you mentioned. So I guess going into diet and,
Sure.
knowing that a high sugar diet is probably the worst thing that we could be having. Um, what are your thoughts on the different types of diets that we've got with your nutrition background? Vegetarian to or plant-based diets to ketogenic to a carnivore. What are some of the things that you've noticed, and how important is diet if we're fixing our light environment, or we're processing our emotions? How important is diet?
Yeah, because there are some in this area of quantum health or quantum applied quantum biology that would say that diet doesn't matter at all, and I disagree. I think that it does matter. I think because I see it in myself and in the people that I've helped. And what I really started noticing and this was before I knew anything about quantum health, when I was helping people with doing mental health nutrition, and people were coming with a lot of mental health concerns, mostly mood related. So, depression, anxiety, sometimes bipolar disorder. Um, they would often, if I could make recommendations and they actually changed a few things in their diet, they could have a massive improvement in their mental health. And I just thought that was really fascinating. So a lot of the people that would come with mental health issues were vegetarians or plant-based, and it really was not working for them. And I thought that was really curious. I didn't really connect it so much in the beginning. I was like, maybe we need more amino acids we need more of so we would do amino acid therapy, which is taking supplements of amino acids and just increasing a little bit, putting a little bit of animal foods, whatever they were willing to do. If they were vegan, obviously not, but a lot of the people who were eating a vegetarian diet were open to eating some fish, eating eggs, eating some dairy. And so when they would add those things back, they would start to feel a lot better, especially with the amino acid supplementation, right? So that's where I started kind of putting it together that something was going on there. And for me, eventually, I did a lot of training in the ketogenic diet specifically for mental health. And when people would eat a whole foods diet, a lot would improve, but not necessarily big improvements in their mental health. So they would feel a little bit better than on a ketogenic diet, which is a higher fat, moderate protein, lower carbohydrate, even if they weren't really in ketosis, because every single person you actually have to see if you're in ketosis and measure. But if they were eating what I would say is more of a ketogenic diet, because remember, ketosis is a metabolic state. So people sometimes get a little confused there. But it just means that you start burning fat for fuel instead of glucose. And all carbohydrates break down to glucose. So when I would have people do lower carbohydrates and then higher fat and moderate protein, major improvement in their mental health. So then I got kind of interested in the carnivore space because of the mental health. And so I was eating mostly at that time more of kind of a whole foods paleo ish. I wasn't super strict or anything like that. So I was definitely in that space of eating whole real foods not eating processed sugary stuff, and you will feel better. But then to interview people, I started interviewing people who had done carnivore diet specifically for mental health. And I was amazed at how much it improved mental health. So I tried it myself. And I thought, I'll just do a 30-day test and just see. And I ended up doing 2.5 years on carnivore because so many things improve. And then I found the quantum health space. So I know this is a really long way to answer, but where I've come to now, I think that everybody has to find their own place in this. I think it has to do with your heritage. There's a lot, food and culture are very entwined. And so I'm very respectful of whatever way people want to eat. We try to make that work for them in the best ways that we can. And if they're struggling with mental health, then if they're open to getting animal sources of food, because those nutrients are going to be more nutrient dense sources of food, but also more bioavailable for them. And what we really want is those amino acids, because the amino acids are what are making your neurotransmitters. And so sometimes people they don't have enough of the raw materials to make. So they don't have enough fat and they don't have enough amino acids to make their hormones and to make their neurotransmitters. And so things just aren't working very well in their bodies. So we address that piece. Then we try to work with people and have as much flexibility. But honestly, if you're eating out of season, it can really confuse your body. It's going to confuse your mitochondria. I did not understand that. I did not learn that in nutritional therapy school and all the trainings that I did after that in mental health nutrition. That was never part of what we learned. I didn't learn that till I came to applied quantum biology and realized that your mitochondria, they orient based on the seasons that we're in, the light environment. So if your light environment and your food are not matched, so if your food is grown in a different light environment, if you're getting, well, you can get kiwi where you are, but if we're eating kiwi over here in the United States, which is not grown here, then we may love it, but it's very confusing then to your body. And if your mitochondria are already struggling to function well, so either because we inherited some dysfunctional mitochondria or because of our lifestyles, all of that, if we have dysfunctional mitochondria and we can actually function up to about 70% dysfunction with 70% dysfunctional mitochondria before we even start really noticing that there are problems and having symptoms. So if our mitochondria are already struggling and then we're also eating all these foods out of season, that is going to be even more disorienting to the body. So now what I would say for people is whole real food, right? Anything that's coming out of a box or is processed with a lot of sugar and any of that stuff is going to be disorienting to the body. That's not going to help your mitochondria. That's not going to be nutrient dense. It's, a lot of problems there. So if you start with whole real food, you're getting real nutrients, and then start to really understand that you want to eat seasonal local food. And it doesn't make sense in the winter in a lot of places to eat a plant-based diet. And I think that's what was happening for a lot of the clients that would come and say, I have seasonal affective disorder. So they would get really depressed in the winter. And yes, the season does change, but they were spending more time inside. They were eating a plant-based diet with a bunch of foods that aren't grown near them. Also, foods that are very agitating to the system and inflammatory. So like gluten is a big one, sugar, also caffeine. So they would still be eating a lot of these things and being anxious and yet not really connecting that that's what was going on. So it was partially the fact that they needed some different nutrients that just aren't found in the foods that they were eating, and partly because out of season, and even more confusing to their mitochondria. And because they were depressed, they were spending more time inside, and that was just increasing the problem.
Bit of a vicious cycle there.
Yes. Yeah.
And just I guess understanding or unpacking a little bit more for our listeners. You mentioned eating foods that are in season. So at a cellular level, what's going on with the mitochondria when we're eating foods that are not in season?
Yeah, it really has to do with the light, because food is light if you break it down to its basic, and so light is information. And so our little tiny these our mitochondria, your listeners probably know this already, but the mitochondria, these little organelles that are inside your cells, so they don't have eyeballs, and they sense the environment based on light. And then the foods that we're eating, if the information, which is light, inside of the food doesn't match the light environment that we're in, that's what's happening on a mitochondrial level. It's just your body is just trying to figure out when it should be making what and what time of day it is and in what season is in. And because we naturally have, our energy is different in different seasons. Our microbiome, which are the microbes in and on our skin and in our gut, mostly I'm interested in that bacteria in our gut, that's actually diversified by light, by infrared light in particular. And so in the summer, when there's more food growing and we have more of our skin exposed in the light, we're going to have more of the microbes that can process that food. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I guess, making the mitochondria work harder to try and figure out what's going on when it's not matching their natural environment. Um,
Yes.
And going back to protein source, and you
Yeah.
mentioned, animal protein. So for someone that says, well, where does an animal get its protein from? It gets its protein from the grass or from plants. So why can't we get our protein from
Plants.
eating plants? What
Mm-hmm.
would you say to that? I'm playing devil's advocate here.
And they have, so Anna, that's a great question. And I think, I'm not dogmatic about it at all, like some folks are in the space. But I am like, they have a different digestive system. So yeah, we don't have two stomachs. And what's amazing about animals is that they're doing a lot of the digesting for us, because we can't do anything with that fiber. Um, our bodies will not, we can't use well, it's not that we can't use it. Our microbes do. The bacteria can use it. And I think it's a really good question to continue to ask, do our microbes need fiber? Because I think fiber is very overrated personally. But at the same time, I think it's a good question to keep open. And there are like the Inuit, there are different cultures. There are not as many now, but there are cultures around the world that don't eat plants at all because there are no plants, and they eat local and seasonal. And, so this idea that your digestion is going to be bad if you don't have plants, or whatever that argument is, that's not actually true. There are plenty of people on a carnivore diet, either because the indigenous culture, there aren't plants available, or they just don't eat the plants unless they are growing locally. So I think that sort of solves that argument. Is like, we just have a different digestive system. We're not made to eat a lot of grass. We can utilize plants, and we have utilized plants as humans medicinally and for food for a very long time, but that doesn't mean that it's the best nutrition for us. It's actually rather difficult to get. That's when I mean the bioavailability. It's difficult to actually utilize nutrients in some of the plant foods because they also have anti nutrients that are blocking our ability to absorb those nutrients. And some people seem to do okay. And I think those are people who have, one, been born with really great mitochondria, thanks to their mothers. There is some evidence that's small, but that we get that our fathers have something to do with our mitochondria, but mostly the research shows that we get our mitochondria from our mothers. So down your mother's line, you might have really great mitochondria, but I also think it has to do with how much people are outside. How much are they barefoot outside? How much skin are they touching to Earth's surface? There are a lot of ways for us to be nourished, and food is just happens to be one source of fuel. And when that fuel really works for your body, then everything is going to work better in the body. That's a long, I keep having these very long answers to your questions.
But they're amazing because I love the intricate details, and it's probably makes more sense for our listeners anyway. So thank you. Just just tapping into the quantum biology side of things and looking at our light environments. I do understand the spectrum of the UV light, and the morning first light, sunrise is probably the best light or the strongest source for a little amount of time. So I guess for people that are shift workers or have had a bout of things happening in their world that they're unable to actually get up for sunrise, what should they focus on in terms of changing their light environment?
Yeah, I think shift work is, I mean, that's where we see most of the research on circadian rhythms and circadian biology disruption, and particularly around sleep, but also in mental health. And so it's a big question. And I think, if people have to do shift work or there's some reason that they can't get up, I always tell my clients, whenever you do get up, go outside. So unless it's night, that doesn't really make sense. But if it's daytime, when you can get up, go immediately outside. So before screen time, we always say natural light before screen light. Get some natural light in your eyes and on your skin. You don't stare into the sun. I think sometimes people think that they're supposed to be doing that, which you don't need to do that. You can even be in the shade. You don't have to have a good view of the sunrise or any of that kind of thing to be getting the light. But even just starting to think about, like, could I be doing this outside? Whatever you're doing, could you take the call outside on a Saturday? Could you crack a window on your way to work or your way back home from work? Could you see sunset if you can't see sunrise? Start wherever you can start. And I also did not take blocking blue light after sunset seriously for a while. I was really religious about getting up for sunrise. And it was, it really is actually, it becomes, you crave it. Your body is like, gets up and wants it. And I was never a morning person. So for people who are like, that's never going to happen to me, I promise you it will happen if you're consistent, because you feel so much better. And yes, that spectrum of light, we really love, there's lots of red and infrared at sunrise, but also at sunset. And if people are like, oh, I can't do sunrise for sure, if you can get out about an hour after sunrise for a little bit of UVA light is most associated with focus and mood. So if people are having a lot of problems with their mood, I will ask them to see if they can do, I always say like a 7-minute, because 10 minutes is ideal, but like 7-minute miracle, right? Go outside for 7 minutes and stay fully present and be outside without sunglasses and as much skin as you can. And the idea is to be as comfortable. Like if it's hot, go in less clothes. If it's cold, put on more clothes. It's not to be uncomfortable out there, but it is to just be fully present in in the actual moment. So you could incorporate some meditation, breath work, prayer, like something that helps you stay in the moment. And every time your mind starts to wander off, bring it back, not in a like, oh, I always do this kind of mad at yourself way, but in a kind of giggly, like, oh, there my mind goes again, and bring it back. And if you can just stay really present for 7 minutes outside every day, that's a beautiful place to start. Even if it's in the evening, even if it's, when, if you're a shift worker, whatever you can do to mitigate the blue light and spend at least 7 minutes outside being fully present in the now moment, that will change your life.
Amazing. Thank you. I really appreciate how, you've given us so much information with lots of different things. I want to finish off with 3 questions.
Sure.
So the first one being, what can we do on a micro level to improve the future of holistic health and well-being at a macro level?
On the smallest of levels, I think we've talked about a lot of just the smallest changes that you can make that make a huge impact in your life. So that's going to be different for everybody, but if it is that go outside as soon as you wake up, or within a few minutes, if you have to run to the restroom, that's okay, but go outside. Huge impact on your health to get outside, especially in early morning light, but as soon as you get up, to get some natural light. That's one of the smallest changes that you can make that will actually have a huge impact on your health. So are you asking about us individually, or like holistic health in general, like as holistic health practitioners?
Well, more about a holistic health practice in general, but what can we do at an individual level?
Okay.
Is it more awareness? How can we spread more awareness? What can we do to increase the funding sources that's going to help?
Yeah, we have talked about a lot of the small changes people can make individually for their own health. But yeah, when you're out in your blue blockers at a concert and people are like groovy glasses, I'm telling you, like, just live your life and live your life in support of your mitochondria and supporting your circadian rhythms, and let everybody get curious about it, because the healthier we are and the more we're out there showing what we do, then we keep spreading the word, but we're also actually modeling that for people. So I say, show up everywhere you go in your hoodie and your blue blockers after sunset, and let everybody get curious about that. And yes, I do think funding would be interesting. I think funding research is always tricky. So I think more people doing their own research, it doesn't take a lot of money to do your own kind of investigation around this, and then spread it. Let people know what you're doing and what you're finding.
I guess, like they say, the change starts with you.
Yeah.
Second question being, what's one activity that brings you a lot of joy?
Um yeah, I have a lot of activities that bring me a lot of joy, but I really actually love walking my dog, which sounds so kind of silly because he's not that easy to walk. He's actually over there looking so cute right now. Um, but I just love that I'm getting him exercise, I'm moving my body, I'm outside. It just feels so um like I'm helping myself on so many levels with just that simple thing. It brings me a lot of joy. And we have a very friendly neighborhood. So saying hello to people, talking to other dog owners, it brings me a lot of joy to do that.
Amazing. And the last one being, If someone wants to know about this a little bit more, in terms of whether they want to read or listen to something, what are 3 resources you can recommend?
Yeah, so my favorite book, if people are into reading, is Electric Body, Electric Health by Eileen Day McCusick. That's here in the States. I assume that you can get that in Australia, but that's one of my favorite books. And the reason I like that book is it's all about we are electrical beings first, and so it really changes your perspective, but it's written in a nice way. So that's a good place for people to start kind of digging into it. There is there are lots of podcasts now, right? I have a podcast, you have a podcast, we all have. So any kind of quantum health podcast, that's a great way if you're an auditory learner like I am, to listen to podcasts, a great resource. And then the Quantum Biology Collective. So the Quantum Biology Collective, there's a free version if people just want to dip a toe in. And then there is a paid version where you really get invested in the community and learn more. And if people are really interested, the Quantum Biology Collective has started an institute. So it's the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology, the IAQB, where you can actually get certified. So if you're a practitioner and you really want to get certified, you can. But if you're just there, that's an easy place to go learn a lot.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Where can people find you, Dr. Kelli?
Yeah, so my website, I'm on Instagram. I'm more active on Instagram than any other of the social media platforms. And it's just Dr_Kelli with an I, Kelli. And I love to connect with people there. And then my website is also anxiety-recovery.com. And the podcast is Quantum Mental Health. So I think if people Google my name and Google Quantum Mental Health, you can find a lot of resources.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is where your journey of exploration continues. Please subscribe to the Lifeability podcast so that you can stay tuned when new episodes come online. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. The mission at Lifeability is to inspire you to create a more fulfilling life for yourself and improve your quality of life. So why not share this podcast with your loved ones and create a ripple effect together? Until next time, Asante Sana.